Hello, you absolute legends. 4 years ago, all the way back in May of 2021, I released a video covering what is potentially the biggest and most widespread video game cheating scandal of all time. After a new method to detect cheated runs was discovered in Trackmania, multiple top players and many others were exposed for having cheated by using Cheat Engine to slow the game down and record times in slow motion. Literally, thousands of records were discovered to have been cheated, and the sheer magnitude and breadth of the amount of cheating is something I've never ever seen before nor since. The most shocking revelation was the inclusion of arguably the greatest Trackmania player of all time, a player known as Riolu. When it came to time attack, Riolu was the GOAT, and he dominated almost every single Trackmania game that exists. However, it was discovered that Riolu had cheated thousands of his runs, going all the way back to at least 2011. That is a full decade-long history of cheating, and he will go down in history as one of the most prolific cheaters of all time. Riolu wasn't the only cheater though. In fact, 5 out of the top 10 players in the world were exposed, so you can see how this would have had a massive impact on the community. But Riolu was unique, as the other top players who were caught more or less immediately admitted to cheating once everything came to light. But not Riolu. After the findings of a months-long investigation were made public, Riolu completely disappeared. And when I say disappeared, I really mean it. His last tweet was in May of 2021. His last Twitch stream was the day before everything came to light. His last YouTube upload was also in May of 2021. He made no admissions, made no public statements, messaged none of the moderators or any other community heads. He simply vanished. And this always fascinated me. I've covered a lot of cheaters over the years, and I've heard a lot more stories than those that I've even talked about myself. And I've never ever seen anything quite like this. It was truly bizarre. I didn't understand how someone who had devoted the last 10 years of their life to a game and to a community could just leave so suddenly without saying a single word. And it has bugged me for the past 4 years. However, as it turns out, the reason why Riolu was able to stay so silent for so long is because he never actually left. After one of the most interesting investigations I've ever seen, it was uncovered that not only was Riolu still playing, but he had worked his way all the way back to the top of the ranks, playing under an anonymous account. And he wasn't just playing under one account either, he was playing under many. Riolu had been secretly playing under the guise of several anonymous accounts ever since he was banned in 2021. But unfortunately for him, his ruse was now up, and after all of his alt accounts were uncovered, he was banned once again. For a second time, years of records were destroyed, and the saddest part is that it appears as though all of Riolu's records after May 2021 were all legitimate. In today's video, we are going to take a look at one of the craziest stories I've ever heard, and to learn what Riolu has really been up to the past few years. And we will also revisit some classic cheaters of the past to compare their actions with Riolu's, and compare how the community now sees them with how the Trackmania community now sees Riolu. Because the unfortunate reality is that if Riolu had simply admitted to everything and apologized back in 2021, there is a very good chance he would already be welcomed back into the community and all of his legitimate records would still be ranked. Now legends, I am very excited to announce that I have just launched a brand new Doom speedrunning competition. I'm challenging you to beat the first level of the Ultimate Doom, E1M1, as quickly as you can while achieving 100% kills, items, and secrets. We have some amazing prizes including $500 for first place, plus 2 displays of your choice for everyone in the top 10. However, it really doesn't matter how fast your run is, 3 runs chosen at random will also receive a display poster as well. The competition will be running for 3 weeks, ending on the 6th of June, and the link to the competition page will be in the description. I managed to get a time of 59 seconds, so I'm really curious to see how many people will be able to beat me. A massive thanks to Displate for helping to make this competition possible. I honestly love Displate. I think they make incredible looking posters, and I personally have a ton of them. Displate works with all of your favorite media, so if you love a video game or a movie or a TV show, you should definitely celebrate it by grabbing a Displate and putting it on your wall. Not only will buying a Displate improve the aesthetic of your room, but it will also help to make make future competitions possible. Not just with Doom, but with other games as well. Support me by supporting Displate and get yourself a poster so we can do more of these types of competitions. It really will make this possible. And also, if you use code Carl or my link in the description, you will also get a huge discount. I would love as many people to get involved as possible, and if this competition is a success, I will do many more in the future. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the findings of an extensive investigation carried out by the Trackmania community. If you want to know the exact methodology of the investigation, I strongly recommend you go and watch a video by Virtual. It's an amazing video, and it goes in depth as to how all of this was uncovered in great detail. As I mentioned before, on the surface, it appeared as though Riolu vanished after being exposed in May of 2021. But here is what really happened. Immediately after getting banned on his main account, Riolu started playing on another account called 92Bob. And when I say immediately, I really mean it. Riolu was banned in May, and then 92Bob started achieving records in June, less than a month later. 92Bob caught the attention of other players from day one. This was a completely unknown player who seemingly came out of nowhere and was already achieving world records. Naturally, this caused suspicions amongst other top players, and the account was even reported to the game's developer, Nadeo. In July 2021, in response to the cheating scandal, Nadeo deleted hundreds of cheated records from Riolu and others, and they even removed some times from 92Bob that he had already achieved by July. Though it wasn't because they had solid evidence his times were cheated. Instead, 92Bob's times were only removed because the account in general was very suspicious. These removed times would ultimately end up being reinstated by Nadeo due to the lack of evidence of foul play. And 92Bob would continue to grind for the next year, eventually reaching the world #1 position in Trackmania United forever. By December 2022, 92Bob was way out in front, and for the entire time that he was playing, he didn't interact with the community a single time, and no one had any idea who 92Bob might be. At this point, I suppose Riolu may have become lonely, because at the end of 2022, he stopped playing under the 92Bob account, and at the start of 2023, he adopted a new identity as a player named Eddie A. In contrast to 92Bob, who separated himself from the other players, Eddie was quick to involve himself within the community. He created a YouTube channel and would upload videos of his runs. He joined community Discord servers and even befriended other top players. Riolu seemed to have learned from his mistakes from the 92Bob account, which achieved good times far too quickly, thus raising too many eyebrows. With this new account, Eddie would start off much slower. Instead of posting world records, he would upload times that were just inside the top 10. However, Eddie did quickly improve, and was soon achieving world records just like 92Bob. Eddie would focus on the game Trackmania 2 Lagoon, where he would crush the competition, again becoming the #1 ranked player in the entire world by far. Eddie even had a very interesting backstory. According to Eddie, he lived in Kazakhstan with his wife and child. And this is where I started to realize that this situation is much stranger than anything else I've ever seen. I can understand why Riolu created 92Bob after his main account was banned. Obviously, Riolu loved the game and still wanted to play, and this was the only way that he could do it. But his actions under the Eddie account are bizarre. Riolu is German and lives in Germany, but as his alter ego Eddie, he lived life as a family man in Kazakhstan and spoke about how the movie Borat affected the world's perception of his country. On Eddie's YouTube channel, he would upload videos of runs that beat the times that Riolu had previously achieved by cheating. So it's interesting that while Riolu never admitted to cheating himself, through his alt account Eddie, he did actually accuse himself of cheating. And then he even attempted to farm praise from the community through Eddie's YouTube channel by beating his own cheated world records. Eddie would continue to play Trackmania and be an active member of the community from early 2023 all the way until November of 2024, at which time one of the moderators of the Trackmania exchange leaderboards called Arcus uncovered some very peculiar peculiar things about Eddie's account. On the Trackmania Exchange leaderboards, which is a community-run website, players submit replays, and those replay files contain information about the in-game login that was used. Eddie's Trackmania Exchange account had replays from two different in-game logins. One was Eddie A, which makes sense, and the other was from a login called Ponzor22. This could indicate that it was more than one person uploading replays to this account. When the moderator Arcus searched for any other Exchange accounts that had replays submitted by the Ponzor22 in-game login, he found an old account that hadn't been active since 2010. This account also had replays from two in-game logins. One was from Ponzor22, and the other was Accelerator01, which just so happens to be the main account login for Riolu. Arcus then confronted Eddie, asking him why he was using multiple accounts, and asking why some of his replays have German flags when Eddie was from Kazakhstan. Eddie claimed that this was because he was sharing the account with friends. Arcus also requested that Eddie record a voice memo, I suppose to check if it was in fact Riolu, who in theory should be easy to detect given his thick German accent. Eddie was very unhappy with this, but he did say that he would provide one. However, after this conversation, Eddie completely disappeared and that voice recording was never sent. And as if by a miracle, around the same time that Eddie disappeared, 92 Bob returned. While no one had any concrete evidence that 92 Bob was Riolu, many people had suspected it for a long time. In early 2024, Virtual uploaded a video specifically addressing the mysterious identity of 92 Bob, and made the case that it was likely Riolu. However, it wasn't until the discovery by Arcus in late 2024 that the puzzle pieces really started to fall into place. And after an investigation that spanned multiple months, it was proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that both 92 Bob and Eddie A were alt accounts of Riolu. Again, I recommend you watch Virtual's video if you want the specific details of the full investigation, because it was extremely involved and there was a ton of things they found. For example, it turned out that Riolu had been achieving records on multiple other accounts, and it also turned out that Riolu had been posting disturbing YouTube comments under the videos of other players using various YouTube accounts. And what is probably most disturbing is that Eddie A, or rather his full name of Eddie Rising, as per his YouTube channel, is a real person who was a childhood friend of Riolu. And for the past couple of years, Riolu had essentially stolen his identity. After Virtual's video was released, Nadeo scrubbed 92 Bob from the rankings, deleting every single one of his records. Plus, they also removed 14 other accounts, with most of them, or even all of them possibly, being used by Riolu. And here is what is sad. There is zero evidence to suggest that any of the records that Riolu set under either 92 Bob or Eddie are cheated. As far as anyone can tell, they were all legitimately achieved. Riolu must have spent thousands of hours playing the game after he was banned in 2021. He must have spent thousands of hours achieving real scores, only to get banned for a second time. Riolu is the perfect example of what not to do when you get caught cheating. The reality is that if Riolu had just admitted to what he did back in 2021, he would have been allowed to compete freely years ago. The 2021 cheating scandal involved so many players that, to be quite frank, their punishment ended up being very lenient. Every single player who confessed only received a 1-year ban, and in the grand scheme of things, a 1-year ban is not a very long time. The best example is the player Nico, who in 2021 had 61 records removed for cheating. He confessed immediately after the investigation and received a 1-year ban. And now, today, he is ranked second in the world in the Trackmania United Forever rankings. Even the player who had the most records removed in United Forever, the player known as Techno, who had 279 records removed in that one game alone, only received a 1-year ban because he also immediately confessed. The Trackmania community was extremely forgiving, and not only were the bans relatively brief, but the community itself mostly welcomed back the players who were genuinely sorry for their actions. Riolu did the absolute worst thing he could have possibly done. If he confessed and apologized, he would have received a 1-year ban, and then would have been able to compete for the past 3 years. He could have continued to stream, and people would have watched. He's arguably the greatest player ever. People want to see him play. Of course, there is a percentage of the public who have a zero-tolerance stance on cheating and will never forgive a player if they do cheat even a single time, but I think this is just the minority. Most people will eventually accept a genuine apology, and will re-accept a player, but only if they take responsibility quickly. Riolu clearly has no remorse whatsoever, and he clearly lacks the ability to behave in a way that will lead to a positive outcome, and I really struggle to understand why. I know it must feel very difficult when it happens, but if you do cheat and do get caught, confessing and apologizing immediately is always the best decision. To do anything else is nonsensical. Back in 2022, I covered the Guitar Hero player Shmooey, who was probably the biggest cheater of all time for that game. After being exposed, he eventually made a sincere apology and tried to make amends. And now today, 3 years later, he has been largely welcomed back into the community and is still a world-class player. And in my opinion, this is the best outcome, because he does seem to be remorseful and reformed. Last year, I covered the Osu player Cloutaful, who rose to the top 3 in the world by cheating. This was one of the biggest Osu cheating scandals ever, and Cloutaful was banned for a grand total of 6 months. And currently, he is almost back into the top 10. Regardless of whether or not you think a 6-month ban was too short, the reality is that because he admitted to what he did and seems to be making a genuine attempt to make amends, he is now allowed to compete. Even if a competitive leaderboard permanently bans you for cheating, if you are a good player and you're upfront about what you did, there will always be a section of the community that will appreciate watching you play. In 2023, I covered the Geometry Dash player Space UK, and this cheating scandal was intense. The lengths that Space UK went to in order to fool the community was incredible, and while he is currently permanently excluded from the official ranks, he still uploads his gameplay to YouTube and has thousands of people that enjoy watching his videos. And honestly, these aren't even good examples of what you should do, because all 3 of these cheaters initially denied cheating, as many cheaters do, and they only confessed when their situation became so obviously hopeless that they had no choice. However, I think cheaters initially denied cheating because they don't understand that coming clean really is the best and only option. Yes, things will be tough for a while, especially because cheaters are gamers like the rest of us and want to play and compete. But you shouldn't let your past mistakes cause you to make future ones. And if you have cheated, even if you haven't been caught yet, the best time to come forward is always as soon as possible. With that being said, it's possible that Riolu has now extinguished any possible grace he may have saved from the community. Almost no one will forgive his actions at this point, and he's probably never going to be a part of the Trackmania community ever again. But still, that shouldn't stop him from confessing and apologizing. Not because he may want to eventually be welcomed back, but rather because it's the morally correct thing to do. I suspect, however, that given his actions over the past few years, this is likely wishful thinking. Riolu is probably so deep in the hole that he's dug for himself that he feels as though it's impossible to escape, no matter what he ever does, which is one of the biggest shames I've ever seen in competitive gaming. We all want to see talented people do amazing things, and when someone with such amazing skill throws it all away, everyone loses. Once again, I really hope you all take part in my Doom speedrunning competition, if not just for the prizes, then at least for the fun. The link is in the description. Thank you so much for watching, you legends. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next video.